Hey, friends, welcome to episode 465 of the My Witch 3 Cents podcast. Video, audio, and I'm not sure if the video version of this is going to get flagged. Full disclosure, I'm recording this on Sunday morning, and it has been quite an adventure getting everything set up. And I can't wait to one day have a dedicated podcast studio where I'm set up all the time and I don't have to tear down and take stuff and move it around. That is on the wish list. My wife and I actually talked about it again last week. So hopefully one of these days that's going to happen. Now, this week I kind of debated and I wasn't sure what to do for this week's episode because, as I've said before, I want to do in the month of October, I want to do every month or every week rather, do a Halloween themed episode. And so in doing that, I kind of put it out there of my intent, and then got lots of suggestions and people throwing out ideas. And I'm really still trying to get a couple. I've reached out to a couple of, and I'm multitasking here. So if you're watching, you're seeing me kind of move my hands around and doing different things. So that is, I'm not necessarily trying to ignore folks or ignore what's going on here, but I am multitasking because when you're a one-person show, that's what you got to do sometimes. So, and what I was doing was trying to look up a comment, and now I can't find it. It was a suggestion from someone, and I have forgotten who it was who had suggested it, but it was a good idea of doing a watch along of the 1991. Here it is, Gregory Townsend. If you're still working on ideas for this month, consider a watch along for the Chamber of Horrors match at 1991 Halloween Havoc. Or it may be timely to watch the Halloween Havoc Thunderdome from 1989. I'd also enjoy a dive into the Ministry of Darkness storyline. So we may still throw that one out there. But I had debated because I have talked about Halloween Havoc 91 before, the match, the Chamber of Horrors match specifically, but didn't do it as a watch along, and I'm alone and I don't know how this is going to work. And again, I don't know got the audio very low on my Peacock, which if you are going to watch along as well, it is season 3, episode 1, Halloween Havoc 1991. I don't know why Peacock does it that way, but that is the way they do it. So I do have it turned on, and it's to the point where Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone introduced the show and let us know that Barry Windham is not going to be competing, and they're pitched it now to Eric Bischoff, who is outside. This is back when he was, in his words, a C-level announcer, and talking to some of the wrestlers who are showing up now. The interesting thing about Halloween Havoc, and I've talked about this before, is Eric Bischoff, and I did years ago look at the numbers, crunch the numbers, and did a blog about it. But Halloween Havoc, I think as fans, we all thought that Starrcade was kind of their benchmark, their WrestleMania, if you will, they being WCW. But it turns out that Halloween Havoc was actually had more buy rates and more overtime. If you compare the numbers throughout the years that they were both a Halloween Havoc and a Starrcade, it was actually Halloween Havoc. Now, it wasn't by much, but Halloween Havoc was really a benchmark show for them, and one that I wish WWE would effectively bring back. I know that they have done some NXT shows, and I don't know if this year they're planning a Halloween Havoc, but how awesome would it be? And I think I posted this on my 123 Cents Facebook group, which I would encourage you to join if you haven't already on Facebook. And excuse me, and that is the Sphere out in Las Vegas. How awesome would that be with that jack-o'-lantern they had it going very recently? That would be so amazing for Halloween Havoc to do something like that. But I digress, and I would like to see it as a main roster PLE. I know WWE typically has shied away from using a lot of the branded stuff from WCW. I think there's thoughts of it was a failed brand, and if we do all of these WCW events, I'm just trying to make my phone not go completely black here as we get ready to watch the show. But let's go ahead and just fire it up. And so it's playing, and I'm kind of keeping an eye on it. Cactus Jack and Abdullah the Butcher have arrived. And speaking of Abdullah the Butcher, he was one of the individuals that I did try to reach out to and get for the podcast. And I know he's had some health issues, and I wasn't sure how it was going to work. So I kind of pulled back and decided to not pursue doing something with Abdullah the Butcher specifically. I wanted to talk to him about this match and do this with him. Now here we have pulling up in their car, looks like Diamond Dallas Page, and he's in a tiny vehicle. And he and Scott Hall, two big 6'5", 6, 7, 8 guys getting out of it. So the Diamond Stud, it's not really Scott Hall, it's the Diamond Stud. They're part of this Chamber of Horrors match, or at least the Diamond Stud is, and he was managed at that time by Diamond Dallas Page. Now here comes, I don't have my glasses. Oh, it's Barry Windham. And so the Arnie Anderson and Larry Zbyszko are attacking him, slamming his hand in the car door. Now, I think I'm trying to remember, and I should have watched the beginning of this with the sound on and paid more attention to it. But Barry Windham and Dusty Rhodes are a tag team, and the enforcers, Arnie Anderson and Larry Zbyszko. But I think I was starting to talk about the significance of Halloween Havoc, and this is the first year, 1991 is the first year that we're doing this show without Ric Flair. Ric Flair was a centerpiece for Jim Crockett Promotions, and then WCW when Turner bought the organization. So this is the first year that we're seeing this happen without the Ric Flair effect. He's in the WWF. He had just jumped ship, and actually probably at this time is still walking around with the WCW championship, boasting and claiming to be the real world's champion. And Lex Luger on WCW's side of things has won the heavyweight title and is going to be defending against Ron Simmons. And nothing against Ron Simmons. A year later, he would become the heavyweight champion. I don't think in 91, though, he was quite there. And that made this card feel a bit less than. And I know one wrestler not being there shouldn't have such an impact, but I do think Ric Flair's impact of not being there significantly hurt things. Now, we're starting things off with the Thunderdome match, which is very interesting in and of itself as well. Now, this is a giant cage structure. If you haven't watched this, I'm going to do my best to describe this. And if you have watched this, let's just have some fun with it. It's kind of a precursor to Hell in a Cell, where it goes outside of the ring. It's not on the ring, the cage that is, and it's got a roof. Elegante, who later became Giant Gonzalez in the WWF, was the first to come out. Now here comes Big Van Vader, and he is looking quite scary with the big smoking mask. So when he takes that off and sets it down, it does the whole spectacle in and of itself as well. And this is really early WCW Vader before he wins the heavyweight championship. And really, I feel like this match kind of showcases some of the best talent in WCW, but it's such a hokey, silly, gimmicky match. And here comes now the Diamond Stud out. So they're bringing everybody out individually, which again is interesting because this is a 8-man tag team matchup that is going on. And Diamond Stud, watching him now, you definitely see some of the mannerisms that Razor Ramon would adapt a year later. Again, a year later, we've got here comes Cactus Jack now with a chainsaw in hand too, by the way. But a year later, in 1992, by this time, Diamond Stud is in the WWF wrestling as Razor Ramon. Vader is a former now WCW heavyweight champion. El Gigante is I think just about out and is headed for the WWF because he makes his debut in either late 91 or early 92. I'm sorry, in late 92 or early 93. Here come Rick and Scott, the Steiner brothers. They, about a year and a half from now, are going to be also wrestling in the WWF. So you've got right now on the good guy side, El Gigante and the Steiner brothers. And on the bad guy side, you got Vader, the Diamond Stud, and Cactus Jack. Now, who will be the fourth man for their respective teams? Well, we know that it's Abdullah the Butcher is on the bad guy, the heel side of things, and here he comes now carrying that. I don't know, it's a cane or a stick of some sort with a skull on it. And again, that gruesome Abdullah the Butcher, one of the more brutal characters, gimmicks in the world of professional wrestling. Didn't see a whole lot of him during his prime, because he was wrestling in the 60s and 70s. And now here comes babyface Sting, and I believe he's the U.S. champion here. Beats his chest, and the belt falls off. But he is in those bright neon, vibrant colors, yellow tights, the bleach blonde hair. This was my favorite incarnation of Sting, and I know that a lot of people are more of the Crow Sting, but I always enjoyed, and they're getting started early here. Cactus Jack and Abdullah the Butcher attacking Sting on the ramp. Now the Steiners are coming out. So we're outside and inside of this cage. And I believe this is also the match where we get introduced to the referee. So the referee is wearing a helmet that effectively has a GoPro. It's not a GoPro, but it's a camera on his helmet throughout the course of this match as well. So we get a different view. But this match is gimmicked with all kinds of Halloween. It's a chamber of horror. So there's caskets or coffins in there. There are other people in there, like zombies or druids or what. I don't know exactly what they're supposed to be. And Sting has got that stick that Abby came out with and now is whacking it away at Cactus Jack and Abdullah the Butcher. And I guess the setup for this is why they decided to go first and open the show with it. Now we're getting a view with the referee camera here. Barry Windham, I think it's coming back to me. Barry Windham and Dustin were supposed to wrestle on a tag match. I don't think this is the night that Ricky Steamboat debuts, but I could be wrong about that. Ricky Steamboat had been in the WWF. He had come back that summer and was doing the whole fire-breathing dragon gimmick at that time. But this match happened. This Halloween Havoc happened. I was a freshman in college, so I was not watching it live. I think I can't remember, but my roommate was my buddy in high school that I'd go to his house and we would watch the satellite. They had a big satellite dish in their yard, and we would watch some of these old matches, some of these old wrestling pay-per-views. And I believe, if I remember correctly, his mom recorded this one and mailed it to us. So we didn't see it immediately. This is obviously way before technology, internet, and email and all that stuff. So it was recorded and then mailed to us, because I do remember watching this in 1991. I didn't wait and rent it or anything like that. It was something that he sent, or that his mom sent to us. But Abdullah the Butcher, again, one of those characters that, somewhat controversial these days due to some allegations, and I think some of them ended up being founded and true, but not here to criticize or talk about any of that kind of stuff. But just a very interesting hodgepodge. Now, I get the Steiners and Sting and El Gigante being tag team partners. Cactus Jack and Abdullah the Butcher makes sense. Vader makes sense. The Diamond Stud, I think, is kind of the on the heel side, the odd man out, just because he didn't have that same aura that Sting and that Cactus Jack and Abdullah the Butcher and Vader had. But I don't know that there was necessarily anyone else on the card. Maybe Oz, Kevin Nash. I don't know if he was Oz here or if he might have been Vinny Vegas by this time. But we get another view of the referee and the Steiners setting up Cactus Jack. Now here comes, they're lowering something into the ring. It is that chair, that electric chair, if you will. And Cactus Jack is laying underneath it here, and Rick Steiner guiding it. I don't know if he was intending to crush Cactus Jack with that or not, but the goal now is to get someone into that chair and effectively electrocute them. Now, obviously, we're not really electrocuting anyone, but again, this is awesomely bad stuff. I look back on this, and even when I watched it, I don't think I was very critical of it, because I like kind of the hokey, fun, silly stuff. And I don't think this was meant to be taken seriously. And if it was, then maybe I misinterpreted it. But, I think that this is good stuff here. The giant El Gigante choking out. Now, here goes Rick Steiner. He is in the chair, courtesy of Vader. But fighting his way out is Rick Steiner, who By the way, his son Braun Breaker, we saw him last Tuesday night on NXT, rub shoulders with the Undertaker and John Cena. I don't think that, you know, before that, I think people were predicting big things for Braun Breaker. So I think he's going to have a very, very bright future. Now, oh, Cactus Jack just got hit in the head with the lid to one of those coffins. Sting, it's a wooden coffin, and Sting just nailed it. Now, here come some zombies dressed as medics, all in white, and they're carrying out something here. And they're now all just waiting on the ramp. So again, this is hokiness. It's fun, but it fits that Halloween theme. I think a lot of people like Halloween. They love Halloween. And this is a way to give us some of that Halloween fun without getting overly gory with it and grotesque and violent. You know, I talked before previously about death matches and the light tubes and those kinds of things that happen in those kinds of matches. And this gives you it's not hardcore by any means, but the confines of the cage, and the cage is very different than what we typically see. And I don't know if this is the same cage they used at Halloween Havoc '89, but it seems like it. It's got, obviously, because you got a 500-pound or 400-pound Abdullah the Butcher now climbing the outside of that cage, or climbing that cage. It's set up to where it's easier to climb for some of these larger uh, wrestlers. And Rick Steiner and Diamond Stud are going at it outside, and Diamond Stud's head just rammed into those steel bars. But it's set up to be a little more conducive for the superstars involved, and you can't blame WCW for doing that. Cactus Jack and Sting now going up high. These two were great together. I feel like they had great chemistry, and this was really kind of a coming out, a feud for Cactus Jack. He really shined a lot in this specific instance, not just this match, but the whole program that he had with the Stinger. Now we've got one of these masked. Like I said, there were guys that were in the caskets in masks, and one of them is handcuffed now to the cage. Was trying to get involved with Rick Steiner. So you have all these extra things going on to add to it. A match like this, I would imagine watching it at the arena. Maybe it's easier to watch the whole thing, the whole shebang going on, but on TV, you know, you're getting just specific little nuggets of it, and the commentators are reacting accordingly. Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone. I'm not sure if anyone else is on the call here. I didn't keep the volume on because I didn't want this to get flagged once it goes on YouTube because of copyright and all that good stuff. But there are those handcuffs with the long chains on them that are being used. Again, these I don't know what they are. I don't what you would call them. These guys dressed in all black with the masks on that are coming out of these caskets. I guess there's only been one really so far, but Abdullah the Butcher and Rick Steiner going at it again outside here. Sting now inside the chamber where their electric chair is sitting, and he is now in the chair, but Scott Steiner to the rescue. And again, the transformation of Scott Steiner, how much he changed, and he's choking now Scott Hall or the Diamond Stud with that handcuff. Vader and El Gigante going at it. And there we see the switch, the infamous switch to essentially, again, fry your opponent, whether or not that turned out to be a good thing. Sting choking out Abdullah the Butcher now with a big kendo stick, and Steiner now going after, Rick Steiner going after Abdullah the Butcher. But this was the one and only year that they did this match as well. And I know that in years that would follow, they came up with some gimmicks. A year later, they do Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal with Jake the Snake Roberts and Sting. And again, I feel like some of that, you know, then in '93 it was Vader and Cactus Jack with the Spin the Wheel, Make the Deal. So they did that a couple of times, but this concept was short lived. But again, it was a good way, and I find it interesting that they used top tier talent like Sting and the Steiners on here instead of putting them. You know, Sting was the U.S. champion. I'm pretty sure he was the U.S. champion. He had a belt on. I couldn't tell what belt it was, but I think this was in an era when he was U.S. champion and was kind of. They were waiting for that big moment to have he and Luger go at it, because Luger, like I mentioned earlier, was the heavyweight champion. Abdul the Butcher working over Sting right now. Speaking of the U.S. champ, and just excuse me as I take a drink here. Oh, and it looks like Sting might be bleeding. Abdul the Butcher is bleeding too. It looks as if, but Sting's blonde hair, that blood really shows up. And again, the way they're hitting each other with these wooden boards and sticks and chains from the handcuffs, I can see where it would be easy to uh, get some accidental blood here. Rick Steiner back in now, and another shot of those I guess zombie medics, if you will, white faces, white hair, and in the white scrubs. And Scott Steiner now choking out Cactus Jack as Abdul the Butcher still working over the Stinger. Pardon my dogs as they start barking. I think they're worried with what's happening here as well. I don't know. But Rick Steiner really bashing away at Abdul the Butcher outside the ring as Sting uh, teams up with Steiner against Abby. And now Cactus Jack taking some of that stick, that Singapore cane. I don't think it was the Singapore cane quite yet. And Diamond Stud just got hit, I think, below the belt by Scott Steiner. Now Cactus Jack climbing up by that, and he's bleeding as well, bleeding a lot. This turned out bloodier than I remembered, uh, and this was still in an era where WWF obviously was aiming and targeting more towards the kids in this era, uh, and we didn't see the blood like we saw in Jim Crockett Promotions or now in this case in WCW. And I don't remember Sting bleeding in this match where he is. I'm assuming that's his blood, and I don't remember Cactus Jack bleeding as much as he's bleeding it or as it appears. And again, I know that there have been mixed reactions, mixed views on the use of blood, especially in modern day 2023 wrestling. Um, you know, I don't think it's necessary anymore. But I also understand why some would want to use that tactic, if you will, to enhance or better tell the story. Now it looks like Scott Steiner is being set, or I'm sorry, Rick Steiner being set up by both Diamond Stud and Abdullah the Butcher on that electric chair, but brother Scott saving Rick with, I think that is Abdullah's original stick that he came in with the skull on it, but the skull has broken off. Be kind of cool to find some of these artifacts, that referee helmet and camera, like what happened to that, and the stick that Abdullah the Butcher carried around, those caskets. I think somebody a few years ago had one of the inflatable Halloween Havoc jack-o'-lanterns that they used at the entrance, and it's huge. And okay, I think we're getting near the end here. Cactus Jack is poised to flip the switch. Scott Steiner is in the electric chair. Jack turns his back, and Abdullah the Butcher is being fought back. And look at that, a belly to belly by Rick Steiner and Abdullah the Butcher being strapped now to that chair. Arm straps are on, and Rick is looking to put that helmet on. Abdullah is sitting on the helmet, though. Cactus Jack buying some time here, trying to stall. This is where a match like this, there's so much going on. And Cactus Jack flips the switch, the lights go out, and we see all kinds of sparks, and Abdullah the Butcher is frying in that seat. It is Southern Fried Abby, as we used to say back in the day. All kinds of fireworks and hoopla. Now, the helmet thing didn't make it all the way down, but Abdullah the Butcher is selling this as the best he can. And again, it's hokey, it's fun. And yeah, if this happened today in WWE or AEW, probably would be making fun of it and laughing at it and being more critical of it. But with 32 years later, it's fun. It is what it is. Abdullah the Butcher bleeding and out cold, sitting in that chair, slumped over that electric chair, as he has lost the fall for his team. Invader and Diamond Stud now kind of watching. Cactus Jack, I don't see him in the shot anymore, and I don't know if this sets up more tension between Cactus Jack and Abdullah the Butcher, because I believe they eventually split. I don't think Abdullah the Butcher stays around much longer either. I think he's there for the first Battle Bowl, which happens at Starrcade 91, which again, talk about the decline and the cachet of Starrcade. I think that didn't help either. But again, Ric Flair, a big part and a big influence in WCW, and him not being here, I think is part of it. It'd be interesting to see what would have been different had Flair been here, because he was set to wrestle Lex Luger at that summer event where Lex Luger became the champion. I wonder if Luger would have won the belt and stayed a babyface, and Flair stays the heel, and we go from there. Now, Cactus Jack coming into the little cage structure here to check on Abdullah the Butcher, who and I wish I did have the sound on, because I'm wondering how commentary is selling this. If Abdullah the Butcher, if they're selling it as him being dead or really shocked and not able to be revived. But Cactus checking on his friend and tag team partner. But Abdullah the Butcher not responsive here. Oh, nope, he's up now. And look at this. He just shoulder blocked uh, Cactus Jack. The cage has been lifted, and now Abdullah the Butcher is going nuts. He's kicking the people. He's knocking over all of these medics dressed in all white. They're falling over like dominoes here, folks. Abdullah the Butcher has literally gone nuts. He falls down, trips over one of these guys, and now just beating up the guys that are remaining and laying there. These medics, and now Cactus Jack joining in on the fray. They are trashing these men, and now Cactus Jack being attacked by, oh no, he's just wrapping his arms around him. Abdullah the Butcher wrapping his arms around Cactus Jack as they are in an embrace, making their way out of the ring. And that's it. They fade to black, and now, of course, this is on Peacock, so they go to a commercial. I don't know what happened on the actual pay-per-view. I don't remember, but I'm sure they needed some time to get everything cleaned up and get the cage. The cage, like I said, was lifted up, but there's still stuff like the chamber seat sitting there, and probably pieces of wood and all of that laying around. So that had to be cleaned up very quickly as well for the folks that were still watching there in the arena. And I think if memory serves me correctly, and this is the only match I'm going to do this watch along part with, I think that was the only kind of gimmicky match. Again, we had the heavyweight title match, and the tag team titles were supposed to be on the line as well, but Barry Windham getting attacked there. And so they're showing commercials on Peacock. So we're going to kind of wrap things up for this week's episode. I do want to remind you to subscribe to this podcast or to the YouTube channel. Do both, actually, and leave a review. The goal on YouTube is to get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. That's kind of the threshold that YouTube has set to monetize videos. So I want to get back to monetization and doing things with that. And also want to let you know that the My 123 Cents toy drive is underway. It is happening, and I have gotten word that I'm going to be able to set up some boxes where I work at Shawnee Community College. So there will be hopefully some more toys flowing in. Again, the goal 300. It is lofty. You can drop off at Castle Perilous in Carbondale. Now we have Eric Bischoff dressed like a vampire, or Dracula, and Missy Hyatt dressed I guess like a showgirl from the 20s, a flapper. She's got the big feathers in her hair and a gold sequins dress. But again, I digress. Was talking about the toy drive. You can reach out to me via Venmo, Kevin-Hunsperger over there. So making a donation, anything helps this time of year. And again, we're collecting toys. The goal of 300 to go to Toys for Tots. These are wrestling action figures, but you know what? I'm not going to turn away any toy that gets donated to the drive. But again, really focusing and emphasizing on wrestling figures, because that's what we grew up on, and sharing that joy of waking up on Christmas morning with others, to me is something special, and something that I will do for as long as I'm able to do. And again, want to remind you to subscribe, as I mentioned, and I'm working on a couple of other big things for the brand. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully by the start of next month, we'll be more focused with that. I've done some work on all of it for what I'm looking to do and launch. I did that over the weekend. So looking for some more big and fun things for the My 123 Cents brand. Again, your suggestions are always welcome. Follow on social media, send out those suggestions, join the My 123 Cents Facebook group, and weigh in as well. You can always support the brand. Oh, here comes a gimmick tag team out here. The Creatures wearing green masks, and I don't remember who the Creatures ended up being, but green mask, green tights are kind of this is, again, I think, a one-off for the Halloween Havoc pay-per-view. But anyway, follow along, for the ride on social media and let me know what's on your mind. Give me your 1, 2, 3 cents on things going on in current wrestling and the nostalgia. I could have sat here and talked about things going on currently because there's plenty to talk about, but I wanted to do a throwback and continue the nostalgia kick, the nostalgia ride here on my 1, 2, 3 cents, the podcast, both on video and audio format. And the tag team coming out to face the creatures. I want to get to this before we say goodbye. It's PN News and Big Josh. And wow, what a tandem there. Big Josh, of course, we know ended up becoming Doink the Clown about a year later again in the World Wrestling Federation. So that's going to wrap things up for this week's episode. Thanks again for watching and or listening. Have a great week, and we will talk again soon.